your career as a sculptor, um, when did that come about? How did that evolve?
Well, I actually was a journalist. I went to Pitt, became a major in journalism in English, and I did some writing freelance. And I worked for the Pittsburgh Courier as a sports writer, had a column there. So so as the Courier sort of dissipated, I went to the Postal Service, and I got a job in the post office. Stayed there many, many years, but in the meantime, I was still writing, doing photography, and I got interested in sculpture in the early 50s, 1950s.
How did the interest for sculpture come into being?
Well, I first got very interested in the arts. I had a friend who was a painter at Pitt, and I used to go up and watch him paint. And all kids, like all kids, I drew when I was a kid in school. I drew quite well, but I became more interested in athletics, so that just my interest sort of faded. But after I remember vividly, I was taking a course in world cultures, and at the time, another Pittsburgher got to be quite famous was Horace Parham was in my class, the piano player, and they was talking about Brancusi and African tribal art, and I had never heard of such a thing as African tribal art, and so that piqued my interest, and I began to look into African tribal art, and that was probably my first big influence.
Mm-hmm. African tribal art. And your art, in my eye, has always been African as I see it. It doesn't look like the images that one may see in the continent, but I always see what you call African tribal art in your work. So, I see it manifested all the time. So, your sculpture, where does the influences come from? One of my main influences were, like I said, African tribal art. Brancusi, the Romanian sculptor, and Isamu Noguchi, the Japanese American, and more for the abstraction. And I try to do rhythmic and sculptures and get the essence of feeling that I see in mass, some of the tension, some of the, you see gouge marks in most of my things I do. So I try, so that is to get a feeling that the work is alive even though it's wood. Mm-hmm. Gouge marks, rhythm, flow, ebb and flow.
Yeah, well, another thing, the gouge marks on certain pieces, you'll see them upflow, you'll see them go horizontal, mm-hmm. You'll see them lead to other areas, you'll see them lead to other segments of the sculpture. And it's sort of, like you say, a rhythmic, a visual rhythm, and also I try to create a feeling of vitality and power, so much as you see in Brancusi or African tribal art, and also many artists, but those are some of the things that I strive for.
Mm-hmm. So, how does music play into your work?
Well, people have often asked me if music plays in my work. Well, I'm a great jazz lover, and I think for me, I guess I'm sort of unique. I think jazz is a very serious and creative music, and by that I mean I listen to it on the same level as I would listen to a symphony, or even you want to say light classics like
Gershwin or someone like that. I listen to it in the same spirit, and to me, it's a very creative, very intellectual music, and it's something that people don't think of. But I think it's one of the reasons people don't take the jazz so much, because you really have to think about it, and it takes some background for you to think about it. And but that's, to me, is the intellectual curiosity. It's the part that makes any art interesting.
Mm-hmm.